A trio of Bvlgari Octo Finissimo watches here at SwissWatchExpo coming up. Bulgari is an interesting brand. They are an Italian designer rather than what we see a lot in the watch world from French and Swiss designers. These are Swiss watches, but they're from the Italian designer Bvlgari, and they definitely have a different feel and flair to them than your typical Swiss-made watch. When we look at these, they're just striking in their design. I think that the Octo Finissimo, when it came out, it was evoked a lot of strong opinions for and against, but when you hold this thing, when you get to try it on, it's a completely different feel than what you might think. This is the titanium one, and the overall feel of the watch, even though it is 40 millimeters, because it's not perfectly round, it wears a lot bigger than you would think at 40 millimeter, but because it's so unbelievably thin, it's just a hair over 5 millimeters thick, and the movement is what allows it to be so incredibly thin. The movement is just a hair over 2 millimeters thick, and it's an absolute feat of engineering and fine Swiss craftsmanship. It's just absolutely stunning. But the design of the case, Bvlgari tells us that they want this to evoke the motifs, the designs of some ancient Roman architecture, notably a certain basilica that was made in the 4th century. And I guess that works, but it's an interesting combination of the way the steps on the case are laid out, the way the lugs are beveled and the way they're set up. The crown itself is set with a cabochon, and it's, even though the watch is so incredibly thin, it's very easy to use the crown. This titanium one though, I gotta tell you, I mean, it just feels like a second skin on because it is so light. And being so incredibly thin, you would be, it's just hard for the brain to compute that you're wearing a large watch and that it's so incredibly light. The bracelet is very supple, feels fantastic on. Every link is just perfectly made. It does have the double deployant buckle, and that allows you to really see this fantastic movement. The way they made it so thin is that the micro rotor is made out of platinum. So that's how they get enough weight into it for it to be able to efficiently do its winding job, even though it's so small. And then the rest of the movement, you can see the Côte de Genève, the perlage, it's so heavily decorated and just beautiful. I'd be tempted to just have this watch upside down on my desk where I could look at it all the time from the movement side. But it's really beautiful. Even the dial is titanium. This one's an interesting combination with the black batons and hands against the titanium color of the dial. Of course, sapphire crystal, water resistant, 60-hour power reserve. I mean, there's not enough good things you could say about the movement. We also have one here that's not quite as light, but it's close. This one is black ceramic, and even the dial is ceramic. The whole thing is sandblasted. It's got a beautiful texture to it. When you feel it, it's nice to the touch. It doesn't feel rough at all, but sort of a blackout look with the black hands and the black dial. I think it's really cool. It reminds me of some of the watch designs that were radical in the 80s on some plastic Swatch watches, but then when you look at this one, this is like the logical conclusion of that all black look. Panerai does a good job with that as well, but on such an incredibly thin watch and so light, it really just comes off great with the Octo Finissimo. Now this one is 18 karat rose gold, and it has a combination of high polish and brushed areas. It has a brown sunray dial. The same movement in all three of these watches, the BV138 I think it is, but they all have the 60-hour power reserve and the platinum micro rotor. This one is really interesting because of the gold. It looks more like a bracelet that happens to tell time, and it's definitely more of a presence on the wrist. I like all three of these a lot. We've had the yellow gold one before that was a kind of a pale gold color, and that one wasn't as striking to any of us as these three are. We're big fans of all three of these. In fact, this one we just sold yesterday, so we had to do the video real quick before we shipped it out today. So you know who you are that is the owner of this watch. But give us a call. We'll be happy to let you see these on the wrist. We'll do FaceTime calls. We're happy to show you our store and our service center and individual watches. Just give us a call here at Swiss Watch Expo.